So in today's video, I am going to be reviewing the two newest releases from Atelier Des Ors. This is Collection Abstraction, and I have here Kawa Kimiya, and I also have Kawa Karda. And I'm going to give you somewhat of a first impressions on both of these fragrances. I have worn them both on the skin, plus I have the dry down on a paper test strip to go over with you. Something I find interesting about this collection is Atelier Des Ors have decided not to release the full note breakdown. And I don't know how I feel about that. Part of me thinks it's a cool concept, and the other part of me is thinking from a consumer point of view and thinking how I know so many people wouldn't blind purchase a fragrance without knowing more about the notes. So hopefully my review can be helpful in some way. Now, the other side of me likes the concept because sometimes we go into sampling a fragrance, knowing the notes and having a preconceived notion of how it should smell or what it smells like. And more often than not, when I've gone into a fragrance blindly, it takes me in a slightly different direction. So I do think that concept is cool. You can feel what you want to feel. It might take you to a certain time and a place, but the opposite side of me is like, oh, I would want to know the notes, I think, from a consumer point of view. So I'd love to hear your feedback on that. So if you're interested in hearing more about these two fragrances, then please keep on watching. I am going to start with Kawa Kimiya. Now, just a little bit of a quick story. These arrived when my best friend was over and my husband was also there too. So I kind of have three opinions on both of these fragrances. And interestingly, we all felt different things and all had a different opinion on whether we liked it or not. So I can give you that too. Now I am going to read a little bit from the website just to give you a bit more of a rounded view on the inspiration, I guess, behind the fragrances. So Kawa Kimiya, alchemy of cocoa and Kimiya. Cocoa is obvious, subtle transmutation of cacao. Kimiya, from the Arabic meaning of alchemy, transmutation of metals into gold. And then there's pretty much not anything else about the fragrance from that point of view. So what do I get from Kawa Kimiya? I get cacao, of course, the name would suggest that. And to me, it's quite a powdery cacao. So it's not super milky. It's not really gourmand. This is a take on gourmand, but it's quite complex and it doesn't quite go in that direction. Now, I will say this is a unique composition and I don't think it's going to be for everyone. It's not necessarily a mass appealing scent profile. So back to the cacao, I am getting that kind of dusty powdered cacao. I'm getting coffee as well with this one, but I'm getting an ambery dry down. It's a little bit spicy. I'm also getting cardamom in this. Now, interestingly, I get parts of the other fragrance, Kawa Karda, in this one, but this is more complex. It's not as menthol and cardamom based in the opening. You are met with that cacao straight from the initial sample. So let me quickly grab my paper test strip because it's been dried down for 4 hours now. So I can tell you what it smells like more on the dry down as well. So yeah, I'm getting the blast of cacao, but I am getting complex spices. I'm getting an ambery feel. It's warm, it's quite cozy, it's rich, but I do pick up kind of coffee in here a little bit. Subtle spices, so I get cardamom, but I also get some other spices, maybe a nutmeg. Let me quickly spray it fresh again. This is my preference out of the two of them, just so you are aware. Okay, yes. Oh, bottle's around the wrong way. I forgot. This smells like rum raisin to me. I don't know why I get rum raisin from this, but I am getting a rum raisin vibe, and that is delicious. So this is my preference from the two fragrances. This is also my best friend's preference from the two fragrances. My husband said it's okay, but it's not his favorite from the two. So we all had quite differing opinions. I liked this a lot more than my best friend Tori did. While she liked it, she wasn't in love with it. And being honest, it wasn't a love at first sniff for me. And I think that is because it's not that kind of mass appealing, likable scent profile. I do like it, but would it rank in my top 3 Atelier Des Ors fragrances? I don't think it would right now, but is it beautiful? Yes, it's definitely beautiful. So if you want a kind of rich cacao fragrance that kind of has a rum raisin feel about it, it's slightly spicy, and then you've got that amber in the base, I would recommend sampling Kawa Kimiya. Now, this is just how I feel about it. It's my opinion. You might be getting something completely different. So I would recommend trying to sample, because of course we're all going to get different things from fragrances. So let me go on to, I'm going to grab the other paper test strip as well. Let me go on to Kawa Karda. Now, based on the notes online, now only 2 notes of each fragrance were released on Fragrantica. I thought this one would be my favorite of the 2 actually. And I do like this, but I prefer Kawa Kimiya. So Kawa Karda, let me quickly read from my phone again. Kawa means coffee in Turkish. Karda means cardamom transmuted with a K in Greek. So coffee and cardamom, right? That is what the name is suggesting. But what do I get from this? Okay, so I'm going to get my first impressions again. It's not first impressions. This is the 4-hour dry down, but just what I'm getting from that dry down. A big amount of cardamom, and you have to enjoy cardamom to like this for sure. And I do get coffee, but it's more of a black drip coffee. This isn't milky in any way. And it smells like an Arabic coffee, Turkish coffee, that kind of vibe. Now, if you've ever smelt a cardamom dominant fragrance, you will know that it mostly opens with a very fresh, cooling effect, almost quite menthol and minty. And I definitely get that in the dry down too. I'm going to do a fresh spray quickly just so we can talk about the opening as well. I remember the opening of this vividly. Yes, cardamom, lots and lots of cardamom. And I can almost imagine cracking open that cardamom pod, and we use cardamom a lot in our household, and you get the kind of shell of it too, almost a nutty, woody vibe. And then the coffee, black coffee. And being honest with you, I don't really get much else from this. I can't think of any other notes that I'm perceiving. So I guess cardamom coffee is the best way to describe it. Now, I do think this is a little bit more masculine leaning. And I want to give you a bit of a reference point of what I feel like it smells a little bit similar to. Now, if you've ever smelt Kilian's Intoxicated, it's giving that type of vibe. So very heavy on both the coffee and the cardamom, very fresh with that cardamom in the opening. And you're probably thinking, Hayley, does this smell like Acro Awake? And they are a similar vibe, of course, because the 2 prominent notes, but this one is definitely more heavy on the cardamom. Very fresh and ultra realistic to my nose. But as I mentioned, this pulls a little bit more masculine to me. Now, it's no wonder that my husband preferred this out of the 2. He is a big fan of cardamom. My best friend didn't care for this one. I didn't expect her to. I don't even think she likes any coffee fragrances, let alone cardamom. Now, I do like this one, but I would struggle to wear it just because of that heavy cardamom note in the opening. I will try layering it to see if I find it more wearable for my preference, but it wasn't a love at first sniff, I have to say that, and it's still not a love for me. Now, what do I think of the 2 fragrances? So you've probably guessed by now, I think Kawa Kimiya is more my taste. It's definitely one that I will wear a lot more. I know my husband will wear Kawa Karda, and I am going to try layer it for my own preference or style, but my preference is definitely the Kawa Kimiya. I hope that's helped a little bit. I do think the 2 notes that are mentioned kind of sums up the vibe of both of these fragrances. And now thinking about Cocoa Kimiya and the fact that Kimiya translates to gold, that kind of makes sense a little bit to me, because if you think about amber as a note, amber is golden, right? So I am getting quite a lot of amber in here. So yeah, these were my first impressions of the two new Atelier Des Ors fragrances from collection Abstraction. Thank you so much to Atelier Des Ors for sending these over for review. I will play around with them more in the future. And just to kind of close off this video, as I mentioned throughout the video, as it stands right now, neither of these would make it to my top 3 from the brand. I think Rouge Soleil, Rose Omiad, and Lune Feline are probably my top 3, although I do love Blue Madeleine too. But do I think they're 2 great new releases? Yes, I do. The bottles are really chic. So yeah, try to sample these. If I can find anywhere with samples, if Atelier Des Ors are doing samples, I will link it down in the description box below. But thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure as always. I hope to see you in a future video to come. Thank you so much and goodbye.